Hello, everyone. It's Dre and Summer back at it for our weekly Get Resource stream live on YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe, watch us on YouTube. That helps us get the views out and this message out to as many people as we can. And we want to build on our topic from last week, which was professionalism, right? Talking about professionalism and how that can put a front or a mask to what's truly real and that realness that really facilitates healing in deep and transformational ways. And before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes, we always love to open it up with the question: Summer, what's most alive in you right now?
I have a feeling of bursting excitement, actually. I'm super excited to talk about today,
Mm,
um, and to talk about, you know, the waves. We were talking about the waves that we're making, and that some people are upset and some people are happy. And how do you navigate all of that? And what does it mean? And it's, to me, it's just so exciting to talk about new things in new ways. And it gets me. I feel alive.
hmm It's really challenging the paradigm, right? Having some conversations around it, opening it up, get some realizations in.
Yes, I'm just so
Juicy.
excited. Yes, and about the conversations we've been having over the last 24 hours.
Mm, mm.
That's what's alive in me, and yeah.
Awesome.
What's alive in you, Dre, this morning?
Mm. Well, in this moment, I'm excited. I'm excited for our conversation. Um, Earlier before, more frustrated, starting some work that requires some more energy and movement into it. And overall, compassion. There's a lot of self compassion going on for me right now and just moving through the waves, so to speak. Right. And um, yeah, I'm going to be touching on those pieces as well as I go along. But yeah, overall, excited to be here.
All right. Yay.
Yeah.
So, professionalism, we talked about it last week. We had a couple of guests on, Naomi Rozak and Giselle, just talking about, therapy, professionalism, corporations, those types of things, and how sometimes we end up separating our beingness. We go to work, we're one way. We come home, we're a different way. And so today we're carrying that on, that conversation into authenticity. What does that
That's a big A word.
really mean?
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely a buzzword, authenticity and vulnerability, I would pair. And I think the notion that is everybody wants to be more real, right? Like I think if I ask the question, do you want to be authentic? I think majority of the people would say, yeah, 100%. And so there are degrees of that because everybody's at a different stage of their lives and working on different pieces of like how to be more authentic and what does authenticity mean. And this is a practice I'll speak for myself of practicing more because growing up, like I just kept everything to myself in my head. And so even by sharing my thoughts and my opinions was being authentic when I didn't have the opportunity to do so, right? Wearing that mask or fear of judgment, fear of being made wrong or having the wrong answers. And by practicing that through networking or Toastmasters, public speaking, right? These are degrees of authenticity where I get to shine myself. But I realized there was still a mask at play, that there's a persona that I put on, that I was acting in certain situations, right? Acting with my family, acting at work, acting with my friends, acting when I was interested in someone. There's a particular
Mm.
mask that I put on. And as I discover my authenticity in this moment that I'm practicing and cultivating is revealing what is in me moment by moment, revealing honesty, whether that's sadness, that's grief, that's anger, opening up that I'm activated and triggered in the moment, that I'm happy, I'm joyful. Though, if I were to say most people would be more comfortable at sharing that they're doing great, they're doing fine, hmm? That everything is amazing, life's great. Hmm? And I reciprocate, yeah, yeah, man, that's awesome, life's great too. And then I close the door and I look at myself in the mirror Is that true? How's my relationships? How's the relationship with myself? So authenticity to me now is, am I betraying myself moment by moment? Am I lying to myself? Am I not being integritous with myself? Am I not following through on my word? If I'm feeling these feelings, am I lying to myself saying, no, they don't exist? I'm amazing. I'm great.
Mhm.
Or am I revealing that, allowing it to move through me? And with this practice has created some waves. I've received backlash.
Which practice
What
are
I
we
received, well, I'm talking about revealing myself in the moment, being real
mhm.
moment by moment, right? The practice of revealing what's alive in me. I received some backlash,
You're
which
talking
I,
about episode 2 times ago where you actually processed a trigger in the moment, on
yeah,
live, right?
yeah, hmm,
Yeah. Mm.
yeah. I received some what I call negative feedback, and that's the cost of it, right? That's the cost of me showing up who I am here right now. And that could also prevent me from being real too, because I'm afraid of being judged, being rejected. I'm afraid of losing relationships for revealing what is here rather than just putting on a mask and a persona that everything's amazing and I'm here to teach you something. I'm here to give you some golden wisdom nuggets that work for me because I'm strong. I have everything together. Everything's amazing. Versus, wait a minute. There's times where I'm not feeling great, and here it is. There's times where things are not working out as I expect them to be. And can I be okay with that? And for some people, that might not be okay because it's quite revealing. It's different than the story of that everything's good, that
Yeah.
everybody has it together.
Mhm.
If someone is showing that they don't have it together, it's like, oh shit, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with this person. We got to fix it. Mm,
Mhm. And I think we're here to challenge that, to say that actually
mhm,
everything's right. Why can't we just be truthful in the moment? Why are we
mm,
hiding
mm.
some aspect of ourselves, some aspect of our humanness to try to be something that our culture tells us is right or wrong?
Yeah.
I think we've been told that our whole lives. Well, be more polite, show a mask. Oh, well,
You
that's
could
not
put it.
true magnetism. That's if you're emotional. I mean, the kind of backlash you had was, you've got a demon inside you, or you know, a lot of really interesting um, ideas of why it's not okay to be in the moment. And I know a lot of healing, and a lot of people talk about demons, or they talk about um, what else? Well, be positive. Don't steep in negativity. And I think that's true. But there's a point where you don't feel what's actually happening in your body in the moment. And this is where disease can set in and energy gets stuck. And so there's a balance between what am I actually feeling, and what I've noticed, and I think what happened when you actually processed that trigger in the moment, you went in with a feeling of frustration and anger because the technology, and there was a whole bunch of pieces that were frustrating. I mean, life is frustrating sometimes. People get hit by cars, they have heart attacks, one of their family members fails an exam and they feel whatever. Like, what do we do in those challenging moments? Are we always just, I'm great, I'm fine, I'm so good, I'm so strong? I think it's fake. Um, so why can't we show up in the moment?
Mm. Well,
With
I mean, there's fear. Like I'm
yeah.
going back to like there's a fear of being rejected, being judged, being wrong. Um, there's what with my family, the culture, the country, my friends think I should be a certain way, what success looks like. And even the people that we look up to, celebrities, social media influencers, politicians, even anything in terms of climbing the corporate ladder, what gets rewarded is this perception of having it all together. This go-getter, this aggressiveness, go make things happen, being confident, right? Having the suit, I mean, having the car, playing the part, playing the James Bond part, right? All the time, or what's being perceived out there. Hmm? But then
Hmm.
when I close the door, what's happening behind closed doors? Hmm?
It's a good question. Most people
How are you
don't know.
talking to yourself? How are you talking to your spouse? How are you talking to your kids?
Hmm.
And there's so much fear in just allowing that to be seen.
Hmm.
And so there's shame around that I should have everything together. Because everybody around me, I perceive that has everything together, that they're perfect, that they're not encountering these same problems because no one is talking about it. Maybe they're talking about it in the past. So then I'm like, wow, they solved it. So they move past that level, and I'm gonna go to them for advice and mentorship. Well, life happens in the moment. From moment I'm celebrating, from one moment I'm mourning. And can we not be real in those moments by moments? Even when someone does seem to have it all together, is successful on paper, can they be willing to be open about what's really going on? Their angers and their frustrations, their overwhelm, their sadness and their grief. And so when it's not being shared on the mainstream level, then there's a lot of shame around hiding that stuff, right? Because the perception is that everybody has got it together.
Yeah, so we've got a culture of actors. It's Hollywood in real life, isn't it? And it
Yes.
kind of irritates me. Not
Acting.
acting. We're all acting. We're acting.
We all acting. I act 100%, right? I own that for myself. That there's certain masks, certain scenarios, certain situations I act, and it's a protection mechanism, right? Because it's safety. What I'm looking for is safety, and that why it's so important to like consider the environment here. There's certain environments where if I were to share this vulnerable piece about myself, being authentic, it could be used against me or weaponized against me. Then it's not a safe environment, right? But then that can cause for me to not share anything at all and just kind of like wait to see if I can trust this person versus let's take the risk. This is who I am in this moment. Now, if you don't agree with it, you don't resonate with it, then we're on the same page and that's okay. But now I also put myself out there in a way where my people get to see me for me. That I could still have both authenticity and belonging. Because now when I'm being real, I get to attract the people that like me for me. That speak in that language.
And what about, and hi, Chris. We haven't acknowledged you here today. Thanks
Mm.
for being here.
Hey, Chris.
I'm curious about people like, well, authenticity and belonging. That's all nice. What about success? And what about values? I know one of your greatest teachers and mentors, we have a few of them, but Connor Beaton was just, we're listening to a podcast and they're talking about success. And for men, this stoicism, this don't show your feelings, don't get pussy whipped, a lot of different beliefs. Um, what about, we just watched the movie Gladiator 2 about nobleism, about the values of strength, integrity, honor. And I really see a lot of, you know, there's a lot of success in the world, success in our very materialistic corporate environments. It's about money. A lot of it's about money, and money is printed. It's a figment of man's imagination. Yet we've all lived by it. And for me, what I'm so excited about is a paradigm shift. And even Connor Beaton talked about that. And we talk about how we can truly be of service to each other at our most authentic,
Mm.
and I would call it soul driven level. Because how do we come here? How do we get here on the planet? What's our purpose here? Is it really to make a lot of money? I remember a picture It was pretty funny. It's a picture of a hearse with a U-Haul behind it, and they're driving to the funeral with this U-Haul, kind of maybe like the pharaohs. They're going to bury them with all their gold. Um, and something you said earlier that they said in Gladiator, and the true, I believe, the spiritual war, or the what we're all waking up to, is that, and I don't remember what it was, Dre. I think you know what it is, but that what we say or what we do ripples through eternity. Is that what it was?
What we do echoes in eternity.
In eternity, right? And so I believe we've been here a lot longer than this lifetime. Some people may not believe that. Um, but we can't take money or things with us. But what does echo in the hearts of every other man and woman is this feeling of connection or authenticity, of honoring ourselves in the moment. And I believe it took great bravery for you to do that 2 sessions ago. And there's going to be people that they don't feel safe enough to do that yet. But I think people are going to get more and more tired of pretending. And if the suicide rates and the alcoholism and the addiction rates, and the fact that we have some friends that work in health and safety, that work is now a mental health hazard, is any indication that we're longing for more authenticity, more connection, more of this skill to be real in the moment. If we're sad, we can be sad. We don't have to fix someone else because it makes us uncomfortable. And the more we're able to do that, the quicker it just moves through us. We don't have to be steeped in it. We don't have to be depressed for 25 years. We don't have to be on antidepressants for the rest of our life. We get to just feel and move through it in the moment. And it moves. And I don't know what I'm saying, but Chris.
Yeah, Chris
Oh,
says money is a
Christine.
fiction. Therefore, the definition of success is by society is a fiction. Yeah, it's all play, all acting on the show. And so the question is, am I betraying myself for me? And what I do echoes in eternity. Is it true to myself? How am I showing up? Right? I do make an impact wherever I go. And so what I got from that, what you shared there, babe, was to be of service, right? And what is to be of service is because living in society and having bills to pay, money is important,
Yeah.
right? Money does help people make a greater impact, have
Mm-hmm.
resources, right, to serve. And so it's not about having a negative relationship with money. And we already know that if I'm chasing money all the time, then I'm really making things transactional and I'm not focused on the relationship. So the whole idea is like, how do I be of service? And money is just a form of exchange, right? Of value,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Right. So I think the focus here is to be of service. And how do I be of service as authentically as I can be? Like the human connection. They say authenticity is the new currency. What does that mean? Right? What does that mean? And it's about valuing human connection, and it's about creating a place, a culture where it's safe to allow these to be expressed and seen without judgment, without being fixed. They not come from the notion that I'm broken, right? There's something wrong with me. Right. The more I do this work, the more I see the human condition and the human pattern that everything makes sense. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that quote that came from that book, like perfect love casts out all fear. Was that the
Yes,
quote?
love casts out all fear. Mm-hmm.
Love
Yep.
casts out all fear. Wow. Wow. To be in that practice of love, right? Like truly, not like intellectually conceptualizing it, though embodying it. And this is a practice for me of self-compassion for myself because I'm very critical of myself and I know where that comes from. And it's an ongoing practice, right? So it's like, am I betraying myself? And can I be in an environment where I get to practice this? And it might not be at work where I don't feel safe to do that, or at home with my family. So can I find a sisterhood, a brotherhood, a community where I can just be myself and practice that skill? Because then when I know my truth, I start to trust myself.
Mhm.
Then I'm able to hold space for others in a way of like just loving on them because what they're saying to me, right? It's just information, a transference, a projection of the reality onto me. I'm just a revealer and I get to hold that with love when I know who I am and what my truth is. So if I don't do the work of practicing, of sharing from my heart, discovering what's underneath this hood, I'm never going to get there because I'm going to be force fed by someone else telling me, Dre, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do this. Dre, you got a demon inside you. You should get fixed. And underneath it all is a cry. It's a bid for connection that this person cares about me and that what I'm revealing in that moment perhaps is uncomfortable, perhaps does not fit this person's paradigm of a way of being. And it's not to say what he's doing doesn't work, because it's worked. He's here and he's created this life through that way of being, right? So I've been there. I've lived in my head before. I've pursued materialistic pursuits and I was not happy. What makes me really happy is being me, speaking my truth, and being with others that speak their truth. I feel connected. I trust that person, that man or woman. I trust myself more because I'm given permission to discover who I am
Mm.
without being fixed, without giving advice, without saying that I'm wrong. I can show up as me and shine and be able to cast love out because I'm clear on who that is. Because when it cooks into me, when I'm like, oh, that part of me like feels that judgment and rejection is because I don't trust myself. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Chris says
interesting,
here.
isn't it? What's he say?
My friend Angeli shared a teaching that a feeling fully felt passes through in less than 90 seconds. A current emotion, not stored emotions. That's a big dam to drain. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that exciting that we can think of just allowing emotions to pass through it because it's energy in motion? But once they're stored, it takes a bit of digging over time. And that's what people call trauma. But as we touch what's alive in us right now, it gets to the stored emotions too. And sometimes it does feel a little overwhelming because you're right, once they're stored, it's a bit of a dam. And this is
Mm,
where I think a lot of people are experiencing healing crises. And
mm,
a lot of people think of them as negative, but I really see it as just, stuff that's been held back that's being allowed to flow freely. And it does, people have an experience of pain, but pain is highly intelligent. Um, it has something to say that as we can accept and honors the really big word and trust our pain, that it moves and it moves really quickly. And this is where, you know, situations in our lives seem static, disease symptoms seem static in our body, in our mind, and in our relationships. But it's only because we're not feeling, we're not trusting the energy and what we're noticing. And I like to call our body a conduit. It's a conduit to all source, to all energy, to archetypes, to wisdom. We are connected to, and I can't remember Greg Braden. He will say there's an actual antenna between our cranium and the space of our bone. There is an antenna that acts like the mycelium. Um, there's a wonderful movie out about magic mushrooms. What is that movie called? And it talks about the networks of information.
yeah,
And
fantastic fungi.
The fantastic fungi. So as below, as above, all of this information feeds through our body conduit. And if we're not willing to be present with what is and speak what's happening in the moment, we're disconnected. We're disconnected from the energy of consciousness itself. And all of us human beings are, I would call them tuning forks for each other, to the master tuning fork of life itself. And if we're always wearing masks, we're always feeling disconnected, we are going to end up not feeling well, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so I feel most alive when someone lets me know what they're experiencing in the moment. People are always like, oh my God, aren't you drained? Doesn't that drain you when people talk about, you know, their estrangement or their suicide or they're being laid off in their emotions? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
Mm.
Because energy's released in those moments, not only for them, but for me. When we're in true service, the service itself also serves us. It's only when we're helping people, when we're trying to fix people, that it's depleting and draining.
Mm. Tell me more about, like, what do you mean by when we're helping people that is draining and depleting? Because there's a lot of wording around "let's help."
Mm.
I'm here to help you.
Well, yeah, we did a little reading last session about professionalism, and one of my favorite writings is Rachel Naomi Remen, who was a physician turned more of a shaman by the end. But she talks about how helping and fixing are really about someone who is more expert, more knowledge, is usually helping someone who is less than or needier than I am. And what that ends up doing for that person who is less than or needier than I am, we're helping them, but then we also take away their self-esteem. We diminish their sense of self in that. And because of that, we can inadvertently take away more than we can ever give them, is what she says. And so, what is it to come to someone equally as a human being and be of service? And that almost doesn't make sense in our current culture because we're all about competition, being on top on the bell curve. And there's this pyramidal structure that I believe is changing to a more of a water. Speaking of water, Chris, and that dam is the ripple effect, and how hierarchy will now become a more horizontal effect. I forget her name, but she has the most beautiful sociological definition of revolution in our world, and how our world is always about who has the most money, who's got the most power. And each revolution is about disagreeing or agreeing to hold a specific social structure. And it's always recreated a new type of pyramidal structure where people climb on top of each other. And there's always the people below, the serfs, the paupers who feed the king. And in our world right now, there's a lot of really poor people who don't have enough food and they're on the streets. And there's a lot of other people in governments and positions that have a lot of money. Why is that? Why in our culture and our system in our world have we created that? Animals? If one's starving, they're all starving. If they're all being able to eat, they're all in that same place. We're the only species on the planet that pays to live here, to have food, to have shelter. And somehow we have come to create that. So how do we wiggle ourselves out of that system that keeps us trapped in walking all over each other? Even in relationships, in marriages, there's a common theme. It's usually the man who's like, oh my God, they're taking that person who I used to love and have children with is taking my money now. They're taking my money. They're taking stuff from me. It's like such an interesting culture.
Mm,
And I, for one, don't want to live in it anymore. I don't like it. I don't want to, I don't want to live there.
mm,
I don't believe that any of us are deliberately against each other. But if we stay stuck in our heads, if we don't speak what's alive on us in the moment, we will continue this violent, disease, addiction filled existence that isn't my reality. So I noticed Christine said something, and Chris is here too. Christine asked a question about reincarnation. I mean, why do we find ourselves here? I mean, the world is definitely not what I thought it was or what I was taught it was when I was a kid. That's for sure. And my life has changed more in the last 3 years than it ever did ever before. Why it is, I don't know. I only know that I feel more peace, more connection, and more calm the more freely I'm able to cry with other people. And the more I show up the same no matter what situation I'm in. Because I know people's responses to me, and the psychological terms are transference or projection. I'm a mirror. I'm an opportunity for them to heal by their reaction to me. And the more that I know who I am and more connected that I am, they have the opportunity to experience themselves. And transpersonal psychology is like that. There's a mirror effect.
mhm,
And I don't have to, if I believe anything anyone says about me, negative or positive or otherwise, that means there's something resonating in with me that I get to look at, that I get to express what is actually true for me or not in that moment. If it's alive in me. If it's not, it's not. And it's the responsibility of that person to say, yeah, this is me, this is what I'm feeling. But in our culture, for some reason, we really believe it's about the other people. We blame, we shame, we project, we transfer. And I believe there's a way out of that where we can see ourselves in another person without blaming them for what we see.
mm. So what I'm hearing is that there is a new paradigm, okay, you kinda share with our current culture and the haves and have-nots. And so leading into it, what do you see as the new paradigm, a new way of being for people?
Mm, that's a big question. Um, well, authenticity one, but I do talk about what's called the fight, force, or fix paradigm. We're always trying to fight, force, fix, um, to look, to see, to be, to have a certain life instead of being with what is. Somehow we always want to be something other than what we are. And this comes back to trust in maybe God, the creator, the universe, has something better in mind. That with our limited human capacity in this life that we don't quite grasp. And I know for myself, in the moments where I feel most broken, and Marianne Williamson has this beautiful quote, something of true nobility, of true humility happens for people in the moment just before their knees hit the floor. And so when we are so feeling so broken, and that's what they always say, the light comes in when you feel the most broken. And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but we're going to start to see, I believe, and come to know that everything we've been taught is often the exact opposite to the way that it really is. That,
Here's what I believe.
yeah, what do you believe?
It's a path to truth, my self-truth. So, when you shared about being able to create a safe space for those that were to project or transfer onto you and you're just a mirror, that starts the healing process for that person to discover their own truth. It's the judgment that blocks the energy. It's the judgment that blocks progress from happening. It keeps an energetic block on what I'm perceived to be. So if I do my work in connecting to my truth and knowing who I am, then the more that other people project onto me, what Chris said is, let's say, so frustrating. Two recent situations when another got triggered, spoke to, okay, yeah. So when other people are trying to impose their beliefs on me, for sure, that's an activating for me too, especially if their beliefs are not something that's in alignment with me. Though, am I able to be in a space where I'm like, it's not about me. I know what I believe. I know my truth. And I'm just here to like be a mirror for this person to work through their own. And can I agree to disagree? Right. So it's like the idea of like just being able to peel back what my authentic truth is and be in line with that. Cause I think deep down at the core of it is my own sovereignty to choose what gives to life and what takes away life. So I won't be influenced to, let's say, do a call to arms and go to war. Because then I will have the maturity and awareness of saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And you can threaten me all you want. No, this is the absence of fear, right? The clarity of that. So for me, it's just the discovery of truth. If every man and woman can do the work to discover their truth, to discover the mental and emotional enslavement patterns that keep them stuck in the cycle, that's where freedom starts. It's not a different government. It's not a different person in office. It's not waiting for something to change. It's how I show up for myself first. Am I betraying myself here? That's the biggest piece. Because I think deep down, we all know what truth is, right? If it's cliche enough to say it's love to be in that state. No, it's that practice, right? In those relationships, to do the work. They say inner work is the new sexy. I agree. This is a call for all of us to do our own inner work. For me to own that, yeah, I'm in denial at times. I get triggered. I get activated. I'm upset. Things happen. Can I just own that and like work through it and just discover this human existence that I'm all on versus kind of being stuck in the unconscious zombie patterns that I sometimes see myself in when I'm not conscious of it. Yeah.
I think you brought up a really good point, and that's fear, right?
Mm.
There's a lot of comfort in staying in those patterns.
It's certain, it's known.
Yeah.
Mhm. Even if it's painful, even if it'll hurt me, at least I know it's coming
Yeah,
and there's comfort in that.
it is. There's a lot of benefits to staying where we are, whether it's addictions or being sick. There's a lot of benefits to it. And
Mm.
fear is one of the biggest things that stops people from moving forward in their lives. So then how do we get to that place where we look at it with excitement, as if it's an adventure? I always
Mm.
tell people it's kind of like painting, because I paint a lot. You come to a blank canvas, and a lot of people are freaking panicked. So they go to paint nights and copy what everyone else is doing, which is a fun thing. You start to learn to apply color to the canvas. But it's like taking your life and going, okay, there's a blank canvas here. If no one tells me what to do, if I don't know that I'm supposed to have 2 kids and be married and have a job and be told what job it is, what do I do? said you have to be present in the moment with all those colors on that palette. Which one is drawing you? If you love red, trust that you love red and follow your bliss. Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Archetypes, Man with a Thousand Faces. Each man is a reflection of some part of who we are in humanity and can be. And who do we want to choose to be at any given moment? And it's about being present to the color and the movement of our hand and the strokes that make us feel most alive, not everybody else. But what is our unique thread in the tapestry of the universe that holds it all together in a way that makes sense? And sometimes, and I know people are out there, like, life did not used to make sense to me. I couldn't understand why people were in relationships, how they stayed together. It did not make sense to me until I started being able to accept, honor, and trust my own emotions and what I was noticing in the moment. And when someone else was willing to reflect that back to me, that's when it makes sense. That's when I feel most alive. That's when I feel invigorated. That's when I feel connected. That's when life makes sense to me. And my resources, the instant I want to serve and be connected to people over money, the irony is that's when money starts flowing in, especially now. People can feel that icky, sticky, I want money, the used car salesman kind of tactic thing now. It used to be how people did it, but it's shifting. People realize money as a energetic sign of exchange. There's money and then there's life-serving energy. Do people put themselves into something? Do they want to contribute to life itself? Because money is not the only way that life is resourced. And I think people are waking up to the fact that it doesn't matter how much money they have, they can be as miserable and as deprived and as sick as they are without it. So I think you asked me the question, what's the new paradigm?
Hmm.
And you said it's cliche, it is love, it's authenticity. And what does that really mean? At the base of it, Dre, I think it's speaking what's alive in the moment as we're speaking it. And see, some people don't know, right? We need moments to process what's really going on in us because we have been living so unconsciously. We've been programmed, literally. And so it takes time to unwire those knots, those programs. And why not do it together? That's where I just feel I guess that's where I feel love the most.
Mm. The realness. What's happening?
Yeah, as I can feel in my body in any given moment and speak it out loud. It's moving through me, I'm speaking it. It's moving through me, I'm speaking it.
Mm.
So I think most of us hide. And I think it was last time you said we're only as sick as our secrets. And I
Mm.
know one of my clients I was just speaking to, they're like, they were really sick for a long time. And they wanted to be strong, so they didn't share what was going on in them to their family members, to their husband.
Mm.
And what a lonely experience.
Mm. And that's the space you're creating, the Soul Truth Academy, right? Where come together and just speak their truth in that moment. And I love to hear like the transformations that you see in those spaces
Mm,
when that's revealed and when that's being witnessed.
mm. It's hard to share in this time. And what's really drawing my attention is Chris's comment.
Mm. Which
Christine's.
one?
There's Chris and Chris. Christine. She says, "Fear dictates my life." Hmm. Dictates. Dictates comes from dictatorship, being what someone else tells you. Hmm. She thinks of it as turning over rocks. Some are small.
Yeah, it's
Some are
probably pertaining
global.
to inner work. Yeah,
Right.
working on oneself. And my journey of working on myself, uh, it's kind of moved away from this being my best self. I always use I want to be my best version. And as I dive deeper into the work of myself, I realize, and this is for me, I'll speak for myself, it come from a place of lack that I'm not good enough.
It's true.
Yeah. And I need something else. And it's interesting because it doesn't stop. There's always more. And so as I dive deep into myself and honoring the parts of myself, it's truly about being my whole self. Whole. Revealing what's happening moment by moment, honoring the emotions that are there. And I become more freer, actually. That's what happens. I become lighter. And over time, caring less about what people think, being less influenced by what the marketing companies tell me I should be, what my parents think about me and my mustache and my beard. Just get to be me.
For those of you who don't know, clean shaven is the preferred right now. So I think one of the comments was you look dirty, wasn't
Mm.
it?
I look like one of those bums on the streets.
Right.
So,
I know there's a like, wow, you look like a warrior or a
mm.
whatever.
Hey, right at the end of the day, who cares? I do for me. Yeah. So, yeah, the journey back to self, you know, and I'm here to walk you home because I want you to walk me home too. Like Ram Dass, I love what he says. Like we're just all walking each other home.
Yeah.
Mm.
Turning over big rocks. Yeah, sometimes there's big uh, slugs, disgusting things we find under rocks. Sometimes we don't want to look at them because they look ugly.
Mm.
Sometimes we'd prefer someone else to look under the rocks for us, wouldn't we? That's true, as Christine says.
Yeah, Naomi has a comment here.
Oh, hey, Naomi.
Yeah,
And she's,
learning that way too. I show up in the moment exactly as I am. And it takes way less effort than not being good enough and striving, going with the flow within me.
yeah, that's it, right? Way less effort. So much less effort. So less exhausting when we're talking about adrenal fatigue and burnout. And um, that's what causes it. It's exhausting. Absolutely exhausting.
Yeah. Yes, it takes a village to raise a child, Chris. Yeah, my inner child needs people and community to heal. Took a whole lot of people, abusers, social conditioning to get me sick. Well, they say, like Dewey Freeman says, uh, we're born in relationship, we're hurt in relationship, we heal in relationship. Yeah. So healing is done with the group nervous system. Right? There's so much that can be done like all myself, by myself. There's so much that can be done on a one-on-one basis. Well, there's power in a group, right? Because the human condition is being witnessed. I'm seeing the patterns. I'm seeing myself in other people. And it's like it's such a transmuter of shame. I say like when I make sense of the human condition, I'm like, oh my God, why am I so hard on myself? This makes sense. Everyone's got trauma. Everyone's kind of messed up in a certain way. And that's okay. That's okay. Let's get to
And
work.
it can be fun too,
Yeah.
right? Especially when there's a lot of humor involved. It can be fun.
Mm,
It's kind of funny how much we
yeah.
shame ourselves in a lot of ways. There's a lot of humor to it.
Mhm.
And I mean, Dre, you're mentioning group, and people like can imagine. I know there's AA, which is pretty good, amazing. There's group therapy. I think Giselle brought it up last time she was in group therapy, and people came, and she felt connected to these facilitators. And when she came back a few weeks later, they didn't want anything to do with her. They're like, "Ah, you were good. You went through your program, and off
Mm.
you go." Um,
Well, I get it because it's the code of ethics, right? That keep people from forming those relationships, you know?
Code of ethics. Now, that's a good thing. What are our ethics? What are our values? What are the values that people really want? How have we created a culture where there's professionalism and separation between people themselves? And it, it drives me insane. And people go in with this altruistic idea of, oh, well, especially now, post COVID, people are like, oh, let's build a community, let's have land, let's work together. How do you work together and really know who you are and what you want if you can't be real in the moment? We end up transferring, projecting, and not really knowing what our true values are. And so I was just talking to someone recently, like, wow, we really have this value of being in community. But if we don't know how to ask people how they're feeling and what they're needing without judging them in their truth and in their authenticity in the moment, how do we live in community and actually work and make that exist over time?
Keeping a community is challenging.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah, it's
way.
like you're being in a relationship, right? And you got to work through those conflicts. If you don't work through the conflicts, what's going to happen? Roommates or divorce, right? And imagine if you're in polyamory and you got so many different relationships you're connected with, and working with that. It's complicated.
Yeah, the projections, the confusions, the whatever, and we're just, most people are not in a, we're in a very young stage of being able to really take ownership over what we're feeling, and knowing what the other person and who we are, because we're not often truly connected. As kids, we people please our parents, and then we have to dissect that. We end up
Mm.
people pleasing our bosses. Most people don't want to call in sick. Why don't they want to call in sick and really have their needs met? Because they're shamed for doing it.
At least there's
Can't
sick
we
days
just,
now, apparently.
yeah, one of my clients,
Personal care
this
days. Yeah.
personal care days, one of my clients, she called me the other day. She's like, you know what? My grandson, he came to me the other day. His mom sent him to me, and he said he didn't want to go to his school play because they're putting on their Christmas pageant. He said, Grandma, I don't want to go. Can you tell Mom? I don't want to go. She said, well, how come, honey? I'm not a singer. I don't like it. And I think it's stupid to pretend and act and put on a show for adults. What a smart kid. I mean, this is what we're all teaching people. Get on there, dance whether you like it or not. And he was like, well, why can't we just all do what we're really good at? Why can't we,
Mm.
if I want to build something out of wood and show people that, or if I want to go skiing and box or do something else, why do I have to get on stage and dance and sing? I don't want to. It's fake. But we're doing this to all our children, and they just go ahead and they do it. But here's a little boy. I don't want to do it. Well, it's stupid to get on stage and act and pretend and put on a show for adults. Dumb. There you go. So when do we start listening to the children? This is something I
Hmm.
learned from my daughter recently. There's a lot of parents that say, you know what? I wish my kids would listen to me. By the time they get teenagers, the teenagers are like, why don't my parents listen to me?
Hmm.
I think there's just a lot that we can learn from each other.
Yeah. It's listening to himself. Really, it's listening to myself. Listen to ourselves. Yeah. Authenticity, right? Hmm.
Yeah.
Practice. It's a practice. There's layers to it. There's levels to it. Um, Everybody's on a different journey at different points of it, right? Um, it's your edge. It's get to discover your edge of authenticity. It's just speaking to what's true, right? Like it's a practice, and for me, it's like, and like you said, Summer. Yeah, what's happening underneath this? What's happening? Naming it.
Yeah,
I think
learning
that's
to
pretty.
name it. Learning to name it and say it out loud, and someone who can receive it, not judge it, and just let you heal yourself.
Just be with it.
Yeah,
'Cause it'll move on its own.
it will
Yeah.
move on its own. It's true.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. So
Mm.
I'll wrap it up here. Thank you for the comments, Christine. I see you. Let's see. You need to be emotionally available for the kids. Hmm. Yeah, Chris, Naomi, those on Instagram will be back next Samana. Call it the Samana next Friday, 12 p.m. Get resource. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe. And yeah, if you're compelled to come on here as a guest, let us know.
Are
We
we
can open
taking
up
a
the space
Christmas
for that.
break?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. We'll take a look at our calendar. Yeah.
all right.
Okay. Ciao, everyone.